Lord. Let's try that again, Charlie. Hey guys, quick announcement. If you haven't heard, I'm actually streaming here on YouTube every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. PST. Come hang out, ask questions, and just talk about nonsense. Anyway, I don't know if it's just me, but there has been like a lot of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul content floating around on YouTube recently. Now, I'm definitely not complaining, as honestly, these are some of like two of the best television shows just ever to grace the TV screen. But regardless, I've been spending the last 2 weeks watching countless clips in an attempt to convince myself that I don't have the time to do like a full rewatch of both of those series. It's probably gonna happen anyway. But through watching these clips, I am constantly reminded of just how good the writing was in these shows. I've only ever talked about Better Call Saul once, which nobody watched, but honestly, I feel compelled to do it again, and it's really only because of this guy.
Is there any chance, and I know the answer is probably no, but is it possible for me to meet the owner?
I am the owner.
Really?
In a cast of truly phenomenal characters, Lalo might be the single best character in the entire Breaking Bad universe. Even though he was only around for the back half of Better Call Saul, it's almost impossible to even think of the story without him in it. Actor Tony Dalton absolutely stole every scene he was in, and Lalo became the linchpin of every major drama that the show had to offer. But Lalo as a character isn't just great because he's entertaining, he's great because he offers so much to learn for writers out there who want to craft a villain that breaks away from the mold. Lalo was definitely intimidating and terrifying and cunning like so many villains before him, but he was also unique in his character construction, and that's because Lalo was written like a hero. A few years ago, I made a video on John Wick and how he works so well because he is a hero written like a villain. Lalo is the opposite. He's an antagonist that is given all the same narrative perks and attention that a protagonist would, and it causes him to appear fundamentally different from what we're used to. My goal today is to break down the little writing touches that went into making such a good character so that anyone watching might learn some of those high-level secrets out there for themselves. And I think more than anything else, Lalo's secret sauce really is being depicted as an antagonist at rest. This is probably the fundamental bedrock that underpins everything that I'm going to talk about today. Antagonist at rest is a term I've been using for a while now that describes writing a villain doing literally anything other than villainy. What I mean by that is showing the antagonist, if even for a moment, doing something unrelated from the protagonist. See, in fiction, the literal definition of an antagonist is the person or thing that stands in the way of the protagonist achieving their goal. This means that so often antagonists only appear in a story to be an obstacle, which often directly translate to antagonists only appearing when they are being evil or confrontational. This has been the accepted usage of antagonism in fiction for hundreds of years, and this has created an obvious imbalance between traditional protagonists and antagonists. Where antagonists typically only appear to do evil and be evil, protagonists get the opportunity to demonstrate qualities completely separate from just being good or even from their goal. We get to see our protagonists or heroes laugh, cry, mourn, rejoice, fail, cook, clean, care, and so much more. This is why typically hero characters and their companions are much more well-rounded than villains. Protagonists get to be people. Antagonists get to be obstacles. So one of the ways to get around this is to simply write your villain like a hero. Show them doing things other than being an obstacle for the hero. This is antagonist at rest, and it's the defining feature of three-dimensional gray villains. And of course, Lalo has a ton of examples where his presence on screen has nothing to do with like Saul or Mike or Nacho or even being villainous in general. A great example of this is his iconic scene with meeting with Hector after the stroke. The entire scene is just a loving, charismatic nephew doing his best successfully, I might add, to cheer up his debilitated uncle. As terrible as both of these men are, I gotta say, it brought a smile to my face seeing how happy they were in each other's presence. The writing simply showed them being human, which is the key to creating character depth. Another scene of Lalo being an antagonist at rest is when he's chatting with Nacho in his home. There is no ulterior motive of terror or crime, it's just two men drinking beer into the night. Lalo seems to really trust Nacho and confide in him, once again showing us the person behind the menacing drug lord. However, and I cannot overstate this, the only way to successfully show an antagonist at rest is for them to be vulnerable. You as a writer must show the villain invested in actions outside their villainy. You must show what your villain cares for. You must show their passions. When Lalo brings Nacho into his home, he gushes over the estate and the people that maintain it. We see Lalo furious when he describes his home being violated. We see Lalo's joy when he's cooking and listening to music. All these aspects work to give Lalo a three-dimensional character through showing his interests and vulnerabilities. But showing an antagonist address isn't the core of what we are discussing here today. It's merely a piece in making a charismatic villain. And in order to have your audience or reader perceive your villain as charismatic, they have to understand your villain to be likable. This does not mean that your audience has to like your villain. It simply means your audience understands how someone could like the villain. I know this seems like a weird distinction, but it definitely exists. To give an example of the opposite, Palpatine from Star Wars is a really cool, iconic villain, but he is not at all likable or charismatic. He's pretty much purely evil and manipulative all the time. But Lalo isn't. Lalo has an undeniable way of pulling you in, and that's because we like what we see.
Este es el hombre. Sí, Bolsa. Esto es showmanship.
He smiles, he laughs, he jokes, but what's more again, he's a person. He can show mercy and kindness. When he's discovered by immigrants in a truck, he lets them all go and tells them that, what the deal is. He's gentle and compassionate with them. And normally this wouldn't be a point of note, but we actually get the exact opposite reaction from Lalo's incredibly villainous cousins. When they are discovered in a migration truck, they kill all the civilians inside, kill the driver, and then blow up the truck. This example is actually perfect because it shows the difference between the pure villainy of the twins and the charismatic villainy of Lalo. Heck, even Lalo's entire interaction with the plot can be considered likable because much of what he's doing can be seen as revenge for what happened to his family. I'm sure many of us have wanted revenge for wrongdoing against our family members, and Lalo coming in to pick up the slack that Don Hector and Tuco left behind makes for a believable and engaging motivation. Try as you might, it's just really hard not to like Lalo, because charismatic villains make you like them. And this is done, if not by their personality, by their actions. Another super important part of writing a good charismatic villain is to show them being competent. And this is another way that they can be written like a hero. This isn't necessarily intuitive, so don't be ashamed if you didn't recognize it, but villains rarely ever have to problem solve. This is typically the narrative domain of the protagonist. See, heroes in stories are largely reactive because they have to overcome the obstacles set up by the villains. This means our heroes, our protagonists, have to problem solve, have to push themselves further than what they thought was capable before. Heroes are often put in seemingly insurmountable positions to demonstrate their skills, their competency in overcoming challenges. People are automatically predisposed to like an underdog, and people find interest in watching skilled individuals rise to a challenge. Like why we watch sports. So heroes are often given an opportunity to do this, not only to develop their character, but to ingratiate them with the audience. This is why in so many stories, the hero finds out the villain's plan and thwarts it through their ingenuity and perseverance. Now, I say all this because in Better Call Saul, Lalo's charisma and allure is built up by him being in constant situations of problem solving. Sure, the other characters have to problem solve too, but Lalo is seemingly always on the back foot. Time and time again, we get to see Lalo demonstrating his competency, problem solving, investigating, and thwarting of plans set up against him just like a hero would have to. It instills in us just how dangerous he is as a man and how dedicated he is to success, and those qualities go a long way in building up a charismatic character because he comes off as a supremely competent underdog. But lastly, charisma isn't the only thing that goes into making a charismatic villain. You have to make them villainous, and while demonstrating competency certainly helps establish the villainy as threatening, Lalo's secret sauce is a tried and true narrative tool used by some of the most famous antagonists out there: unpredictability.
You want me to take care of it? No. I got something much better for him. Come on.
See, as much as we can like Lalo and enjoy his presence and find him entertaining, we never get a sense of comfort with him, right? We never get that close to him. This is purposeful, and it's done by making him generally emotionally unpredictable. The unknown is alien, and the alien makes you uncomfortable. It almost feels like he's wearing a mask and switching between them when talking with people.
Quedó bien, ¿no?
Muy guapo.
One moment he can be smiling and nice, and the next moment he can be ready to stab you. He jokes with his houseworkers and then yells at them to get his luggage. He asks Gus to betray Eladio, but then is Eladio's favorite later. He comes to kill Saul, but then leaves peacefully. Or he comes peacefully, seemingly, and then kills Howard out of nowhere. The brilliance of Lalo is that both the audience and the characters within are constantly kept on their toes where he is concerned. He remains just enough of an enigmatic mystery to be a terrifying villain, but he is also charismatic enough to draw us in close, just where he wants us. Lalo is a fantastic character amongst a choir of fantastic characters, and now I hope you can appreciate him just as much as I do. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you like what you heard, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Again, make sure to check out my stream. If you want to be a real homie, check out my Patreon, my website for editing services if you want to hire me to be your editor, or check out my books also on my website. I'll leave links for everything in the description below. As always, it was a pleasure, and I'll talk to you all again soon.